which has been going for a few years. And Marissa, for those who have used Turnitin directly rather than through Moodle, Marissa will go through what are the main differences between then and now. She'll go through how Turnitin works with Moodle assignments, give you a hands-on demonstration, and then and I think just as importantly as the demonstration, cover any known issues which we have discovered to date. And there are a few very important points about using Turnitin with Moodle. And finally wrap up with, if you need help post this particular session, where can you go to get it? So without any further ado, I'll hand over to Marissa.
Everybody knows what Turnitin is. You've used it before. So it's really just text matching, just to clarify that it doesn't really, like, you still have to make a judgment whether the paper has been plagiarized or not, depending on the report that has been generated. For first-year students, at least for Faculty of Medicine, it is an opportunity for them to learn and improve their work because they're allowed to do multiple submissions.
Can I just ask whether the turnaround in terms of students doing that has improved? Because several students have indicated that it might take several days, and of course we all know that students tend to leave their assignment presentation until the last minute, hitting deadlines, and if it links it to several times, it really reduces their ability to improve the quality of their essay.
Yeah, it's certainly, because Turnitin is online submission and involves a few steps in addition to normal assignment submissions, students certainly have to be better organised in terms of preparing their assignments. I don't know whether, I think maybe from a practical perspective, all it means is students need to have their assignment completed 2 or 3 days with safety prior to the formal submission date. But that some of our Clayton audience are saying maybe not.
I'm just hearing the student fact it's not going to work that way.
Yeah, it will depend on the cohort of students. We have had or observed situations in some courses where first-year students, because they're allowed multiple submissions, choose to submit 6, 7 or greater times. Now that really shows students who are committed to using the system effectively, but it also means that because Turnitin only guarantees the first submission will be returned quickly, any subsequent submission, because it may take up to 24 hours, doesn't have to, but it may take up to 24 hours, then students who do multiple submissions have to, we would advise that, you know, their essays are ready at least the first draft is ready 2 or 3 days in advance of the formal submission date.
Resubmissions can often take up to 2 or 3 days, or 4 days even.
Have you observed that this particular semester?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We have just been, I've just been made aware of that there were issues with Turnitin at periods over the semester where the load on the service was higher than expected, and people were experiencing significant delays in, or students were experiencing significant delays in getting feedback. If that's the case, if a student has complained that either their first or any subsequent submission hasn't been returned within 24 hours, then I'd advise that you contact us, and we can look into it, and we can certainly escalate it to Turnitin if that's the case.
Okay.
But usually within 24 hours they will have a submission, whether it's the first or any subsequent one.
Thanks.
So we also have some resources online if you want to find out what the university policy is in terms of plagiarism. So this is our website. We've revamped it so that it'll be a bit more robust in terms of providing you with resources. Okay, so we'll go back to that website later on as well. So now that it's in Moodle, what's the difference? I guess we talk about this because in the faculty we use Turnitin externally. So now that it's in Moodle, you only just log into Moodle, and once the lecturer has set it up, then students don't need to log in again. They can just directly submit their papers and run it and turn it in. Also, the access is simultaneous, so once the student submits their paper, from your view as lecturer, you'll be able to see the report as well. And also, lecturers now have the option to submit on behalf of the students. So if you, in some cases, other lecturers get complaints from students saying that, we're not able to submit, and then they send their paper to the lecturer by email. And so the lecturer can then have the option to submit it on behalf of the students. So how does the Turnitin work with the Moodle assignments? The way it has been integrated with Moodle is that it has become another assignment type. So you need to create a separate assignment, Turnitin assignment type to allow students to submit and run it in Turnitin. And you're allowed two types of content. One is a file upload, and another is a text, where you allow your students to actually copy text and just put it in a text box. Now there are some notes, and these are the ones that we that have been discovered or observed in the first semester. So it does not allow rubric or marking guide. Are you guys using rubrics or marking guides in your? Yep. So some nods within our Clayton audience, and it also does not allow, or it does not include student names when you bulk download. So we've discovered this a bit painfully when we had one lecturer who had about 120 or so students, and they only set up the Turnitin Dropbox, imagining that it'll work in the same way as a standard assignment, where when you bulk download, it takes the student name in the file name, so they know from which student the file is. Unfortunately, the Turnitin Dropbox encrypts the name. And this is for privacy reasons, because Monash didn't want to expose the student names, etc., when they go into the Turnitin database. So what happens is they encrypt the file. So it's a bit difficult. You can imagine when you download as a zip file 120 files, and you don't know from which student they came from. So that's a bit of, they had to open each file one by one. Yes, so it was really, really painful. But at that time, that was how it was working. That's why we're sort of, later on in the presentation, we'll recommend a workaround for that, that you can use. But that was what happened. And then also, it does not allow inclusion of response files. You know how sometimes you ask your students to submit an essay, and then you open it in Word, you track your changes, and then you want to give that back to them. So at the moment, the way the Turnitin Dropbox is set up, it doesn't allow you to send back that file to the student, so that's another limitation. The way the standard Dropbox, assignment Dropbox works is that when the student submits, you can download it with their file name in the file, and then you can upload a response file, and then they're the only ones to see it. So I guess it was also sort of like a general assumption that that was how it was going to work, but it didn't. So this is our recommendation now. So what we recommend, especially if you've got a lot of students, maybe more than 30, or if you've got 120 students, we recommend that you set up two Dropboxes. One is the Turnitin assignment Dropbox that your students can use to run their paper in Turnitin, and then you set up the normal one, the other assignment Dropbox, which is usually the advanced uploading of files assignment Dropbox. And then if there are more than 30 students, you require them to submit their final paper there, so that when you download it, at least it's got all the file names in them. You don't have to figure it out manually. Or if you have less than 30, yesterday we were talking to some of our colleagues in Turning Point, and they only had 10 students. So they didn't want students to submit twice. They were happy to be able to download each student manually, and then they just replace the file name so that they know it's from that student.
So when you're saying, obviously there's the two different ones that you submit to, but in order for us to figure out which student has maybe plagiarised over, say, 15%, we can't actually figure that out unless we can match it to the other assignment that's submitted. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Well, when you go into Turnitin Dropbox, you see the report, right? So I guess there is a bit of trust there, that because there's no system link, you know, like you can't link the one that they submitted in the Turnitin Dropbox and the actual final assignment that they're going to submit. But I guess that's always been the problem anyway with the external setup, because I think in the external setup we used to ask students to actually download their report and then submit it with the final one. But from the lecturer perspective, you still have to look at whether,
in the old one, it used to come up with the student's name next to their report. So that doesn't happen.
It does. It does. It's just the download part.
Doesn't have their details.
So just to clarify, when you look at the Turnitin assignment inbox in Moodle, it always, like the old Turnitin, it will list the student's name and whatever percentage similarity index. It's only when you want to download those files that it anonymizes their name, so you can't identify them.
Yep.
So is it best to have the final assignment there and then go online to Moodle?
I think it will become clearer as Marissa shows a demonstration.
I think in those cases, though, you would only do that for students where you have a suspicion that they might not be submitting the same thing.
So you're saying you don't look at the Turnitin?
Some of our lecturers said that they only look at it if it's more than 15%. So maybe, yeah.
And how do you know what percentage?
There's a report. I'll show you in a while how it looks like when you go into Turnitin. So we're going into Turnitin now. Okay, so this is how it looks like when you've set it up. So I'll just show you not how it's set up, but how it looks like. So at least you know what it looks like from your lecturer perspective. So as a lecturer, once you've set it up, you've got your start date, due date, and post date is usually the grade when the grade is displayed to students if you're using this to grade. But we don't recommend that as well because there are known issues with the way it behaves with the grade book. So where you see your submissions is here. So as George mentioned, you can see that your students are listed in here, the submission that they made, and then this is the report that's generated. So if you want to see, say for example, George's submission is like 75%. So he copied everything.
Only 3/4 on.
So there you go, then you can see. So this is how the report looks like, and this is actually in the Turnitin environment. So this is no longer Moodle, because what happens with Turnitin is they have this whole database where they check the different sources, etc., and then they show you the report in this way. So at any point you can actually go and have a look and see where that's coming from. And that's where you can check the submission originality report rate similarity index. Okay. Where you can submit on behalf of your student is in this tab, submit paper. And if you've got students who haven't submitted, then you can actually see the names listed there, and then you can submit for them.
So the real issue is, so you can see the names and the percentages there, so you can identify George's one.
Yep.
So, but then you need to go and download.
Yep. Well, the reason why, yeah. No. When you download it, I'll show you what it looks like. So when you download it, say for example Michelle's submission, you download it. Okay. All right. So show the download. So this is the file from Michelle. You can see that the file name has changed. It doesn't have any identification. Like you can't tell that this is Michelle's.
But you know you've downloaded that.
Yes.
It's only a problem if you see the file.
Yes. It's a problem when you've got more than 10 students.
When you do the bulk download, that's when you have the problem.
That's really,
That's not a problem yet. So if you've got only 10 students, then that's fine. You can do it one by one. It's when you've got 120 that it's a problem. That's basically really it from your view as a lecturer. And it's basically, it looks the same from the student point of view, except that they only see their own assignment. So that's how it looks like. So how do they submit? It's basically the same way. Let me see if I can open a student view of this one. Okay, so this is my Dropbox. And this is how my submission looks like. So if I haven't submitted anything, then there won't be anything in it. So if the due date has not yet passed, I can submit. You can allow your students to submit multiple times. Once the due date has passed, then you will need to, if they already submitted something but you still want to allow them to submit, then you need to delete their submission from your end, because you only ever see the latest one that they submit.
So even if for someone who's got an extension, that would work?
Yep, that would work.
Submit even if it's closed?
Yep, you can, but you need to delete their previous submission so that it's empty. Then they can submit again. So setting up the assignment, let's use the sandpit. We've got one there, but we can do another one. So where you add your Turnitin assignment item is using the add an activity. I'm assuming this is familiar with you guys. Just let me know if it's not, because I might be going too fast. So you just select Turnitin assignment, and then this is where you can put the assignment name. When you, because this is just really open text, what we recommend is that you clearly identify it for your students. If it's a Turnitin Dropbox, say it's a Turnitin Dropbox. And then give them instructions. This is where you run your paper and turn it in. Okay. So the submission type is where you select, is it a file upload that you're asking them to do, or are they submitting text? So most likely it's a file upload. And then how many files are you asking them to submit? Usually it's just really one, or do you have cases where you've got two? Then you can select how many number of parts you want.
Can I just ask, if you select multiple files, will each individual file go through Turnitin?
Yes. It will go through Turnitin, each individual.
And will you get an individual report for each file, or will it be one report for all of the files?
No, each part is considered one file, and it'll have its own report. So these are the default settings. So default settings in Turnitin, you allow late submissions. So even after due date, they can submit if they have not submitted before, and it's all marked in red. So at least you know which submissions are late.
Is there any limit to that late submissions, or it can just keep going? Like, is there like a 2-week period after the original setup?
No, if after the due date they haven't submitted, when they submit, then it's already marked late, and they cannot submit anymore after the due date. Okay. But before the due date, they can do multiple submissions. So by default, the report generation is immediate, and it's always overwritten. That's why from your review as a lecturer, you only ever see one. So even if the students did it 3 times, 4 times, you only ever see the latest one that they submit. The student papers by default are stored in the standard repository, which I think is the Turnitin repository, their database. You do have an option if you don't want it to be stored for privacy reasons, or you can say no, don't store it. Check against stored student paper, default is yes. Check against the internet is yes. You can change that, of course, but I guess the recommendation is that you allow the Turnitin to check it against all of these sources. So journals, etc. The last 3, which is exclude bibliography, is by default yes, which means anything or any text after the words references or sources or bibliography, Turnitin will ignore. So that's how it checks it. And then quoted material will mean anything that's in between double quotes. If you exclude them, then Turnitin won't consider them as a matched text. The single quotes, I'm not sure. We can check. Oh, okay. And I know that in some instances, one of our lecturers said that they don't use double quote, they indent. So that might be something that we have to, check and see whether, how Turnitin treats those kinds of formatting. Small matches, usually we're told that they prefer like 5. 5 is the normal standard. So if you put exclude 5 words that are matched, so Turnitin won't check it. Yes, you can put a number. Just with 5.
Many assignments aren't all that unique. Students write about common topics or places or areas. Why 5 words? We started as a faculty using 5 words because if an average sentence length is about 10 to 15 words, 5 words excludes common phrases that are less than about half a sentence. But you can change them.
So the last 3, the exclude bibliography, quoted material, and the small matches, you can change them as long as students have not started submitting. Once students have submitted and reports have been run, then those 3 will be locked. You can't change them anymore. Okay, so I guess that's really what I wanted to show you, because we don't recommend that you use it for grading because it doesn't update very well with the grade book. Common module settings might be useful if you've got big groups and you want to be able to filter the list by cohorts, say Clayton, Peninsula, Berwick, or if you've got set groups, then you can use this common module settings the same way that you use it for other items. So save and display. Now this is the bit that we'd like you to take note of, because at the settings, when you're setting your Turnitin assignment, you're actually not asked about due dates and post dates, etc. It's here, it's in this page where you actually set it. And when we first rolled it out, a lot of people got confused because they didn't realize that there were dates that were set that were not the dates they wanted. So where you actually change this is in this page via this edit icon. So if you click that icon, this is where you can set the date.
So setting up is a 2-step process. You set up your assignment, and then you need to go in and set up the dates.
So that's how you set up your assignment. That's it. So if you've got students, like in this unit, we've got 3 students enrolled. So you'll see them there, and then as they submit, you'll be able to see their submissions. So this is how it looks like now. So you've got your Turnitin Dropbox, and this is the icon for the Turnitin assignment. So this one, the one that we've got, we've actually set up our recommendation, where we've got the Turnitin Dropbox and then the feedback and the grade. So if you've got a lot of students and you want to set it up this way and provide them their grade in a different Dropbox, this is the usual standard advanced uploading of files. And see that it does, you can see that it doesn't actually require students to submit. You can use this just for feedback and for grades. Okay. No. In some cases where the lecturer wanted to be able to download in bulk because they can't figure out from which, they actually ask students to submit again in this Dropbox. But in cases where they were happy to just, they already downloaded it from Turnitin, so they just use this to be able to send back response files to students. Because in here, this is where you can do the grade. And this is where, the usual. You can put your comment, and then you can put in your track changes files. So when this was being done, a lot of the students sometimes got confused, and our lecturers actually complained that, why do we have to ask students to do two submissions, etc. So, we explained it to them, and I guess they realized it. But what we really recommend is very clear labeling to minimize the confusion. Like when you give instructions to your student, tell them, this is assessment task 1, Turnitin, and this is assessment task 1 for your feedback and grade. I guess it's sort of like how we're working with the limitations that we've got with this kind of setup at the moment. Okay. Now, I guess I'm going to go into some of the other known issues. First is that when you're working with your Turnitin assignment, the duplicate icon, like how you can use the ×2, or there's a different icon now, but it does not work with Turnitin. What happens is it thinks that it's still the same Dropbox. So you have to start from scratch. So if you've got, say, 2 assignments where you want to run in 2 different Turnitin Dropboxes, you have to recreate it from scratch. Okay, so and this is the reason why we're not recommending it to be used with a grade book or to use it to grade students, because the overall marks does not get updated. If you do any change to the mark, it doesn't get updated in the grade book. Yep, and then we highlighted the due date part, where you actually change the due dates when you're in the Turnitin page. Now there are other known issues if you know, online from the Better Learning, Better Teaching website, which is not available at the moment. But yep, so there would be a list. We can provide you that list, but they usually it's I guess it's from the technical admin perspective, where they list down any bugs or issues that they discover.
Marissa, can you just go back to the previous screen? There was a known issue. What happens when units are rolled over from one?
It's the same thing. So the effect is actually the same as duplicating. So that's actually our problem, because when we rolled over a lot of the semester 1 sites, we had to ask lecturers to recreate their Turnitin Dropboxes, because the way it was treated by the system is that it was a duplicate of the same thing. So we've got learning topics that you can check out in terms of how to use Turnitin. We've also got, so the learning topics are from the Better Learning, Better Teaching site. And we've also compiled some resources for you for all the sessions that we're running in July. So we've got, you know, this is a 4-minute audio video that we've created. It's the same presentation, so for those of you who want to review, then you can run this. So we've got all those resources for you. And of course, if you need any help, you can contact us. Okay, so this is our new website now, and we've pulled together some really good resources for you.
Do we have any questions from either from Peninsula or Bairnsdale?
Can I ask a question? Eleanor here from Bairnsdale.
Yes, Eleanor.
I currently use Moodle marking guides and rubrics for my assignments, and I'm moving across to this Turnitin model. How would I get my students to view, because normally they'll view the new rubric when they submit,
Yep.
But in this case, I'm assuming I have to direct them to the other file. I'm not sure they'll actually go to the second file to view it, that's all.
Yeah, no, as Marissa described, the approach there the recommended approach would be that you set up a second Moodle assignment that you use just to provide feedback via a rubric or marking guide back to students.
Yeah.
Having been through all this, it's a little unfortunate, I have to be careful what I say here, that our current implementation of Turnitin is not as ideal as really it should be. And we have had advice from the university centrally that with the next Moodle upgrade that they will look at improving the Turnitin integration, as well as looking at releasing additional Turnitin features like better support for returning grades and feedback to students, including the use of rubrics and marking guides. So it's hopefully this is just a little bit of short-term pain, and that by the time the next academic year rolls around, we'll be in a far better position to make use of all the other features that will streamline the process even further and make it easier both for you and your students. Does that sort of answer your question, Eleanor?
Yeah, it does. I guess the issue that I'll have is that I want the students to see the rubric before they submit, and I'm happy to attach it to that second folder where they'll get their grade, but I don't think they'll think to look there for the rubric.
Yeah.
I'll obviously have to like PDF it or something and put it somewhere else.
Well,
so I guess there'll be 3 files instead of 1.
Yeah, or just put out and make sure you communicate. I think one of the important things is to make sure you communicate clearly with your students, as Marissa has said. Not only label what the things are, like this is the Turnitin Dropbox and this is where you get your marks and feedback, but also to inform them that if you want to see the rubric in advance, click on this link and you'll see it in advance, just to make life a little bit easier for you, so you're not doubling up on effort.
Shouldn't it be in the unit guide?
Sorry?
Shouldn't it be in the unit guide?
It should, by rights, be in the unit guide, yes. If you are going to use rubrics, if you're intending to use Turnitin, I guess, without being 100% confident of all the policies and procedures around this, that it should be in the unit guide. Having said that, I'm not sure, at the start of the session there was a little bit of discussion, which I'm not sure our remote participants came in on what are our faculty policies relating to Turnitin, and wherever possible our faculty policies have been designed to be consistent with policies at the university level where those policies exist. So our faculty policies are: first year students can have unlimited attempts at Turnitin, so they can have multiple goes at submitting, because first year students really are in that educative phase of learning how to write and reference and cite correctly. After first year, and including postgrad units, students should only be given one attempt, one single submission at Turnitin. The reasoning there being that by that stage they should have learnt how to reference and cite correctly, and really only need one go at it. However, knowing that it's not an ideal world, there is an individual, I suppose chief examiner or unit convener, can make exceptions to that for individual students. So if you believe a student is having difficulty or requires more assistance, you can make an exception for that student and allow them multiple attempts. The other question, of course, is what do we accept as a acceptable percentage match? And usually the guidelines the faculty provides is if it falls within below 15%, it's generally considered okay. Anything above 15% should be reviewed. And just to reiterate the point, Turnitin is simply text matching software. Turnitin does not make a distinction whether plagiarism has occurred, and if it has occurred, whether it is intentional or non-intentional. That requires academic input and an academic decision into whether plagiarism has actually occurred. So it's worth bearing in mind that very important point.
Can I ask, if you've got multiple attempts, does it match against the previous drafts of the assignment? Or
Yeah.
does it?
The question was, where you allow students multiple attempts, does it match against their previous attempts? The answer is no. It doesn't. When students resubmit, instead of getting a submit button, they get a resubmit button, and Turnitin ignores any previous submission from that student.
George, can I just throw a spanner into the works? Well, in nursing we have students that come in second year, which is their first year at university.
Yep.
Because they've got advanced standing.
Yep.
It would be good to have to allow them multiple attempts, as we do in first year, because they're in a similar position, I would imagine, to our first year. And I'm hearing you saying that you do that for an individual rather than as a group.
Yeah. I think that's an excellent point, and I think in that particular case it would be worthwhile writing to Marilyn Baird and just indicating the nature of the problem and getting approval for Marilyn to have a blanket approval for any units in that particular situation. Okay. Is that it for questions? If it is, we hope you found the session to be beneficial. As Marissa has said, has indicated, our contact details are on our website. If you have any questions in relation to Turnitin specifically or using Turnitin within Moodle, please don't hesitate to call on us. And apart from the excellent resources Marissa has made available on the website, these sessions are being recorded, and once we have the link to that recording, we'll distribute that as well if anyone would like to review it at any stage. So thank you all for attending.
So